I call the member for North Sydney.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I move the motion relating to housing in the terms in which it appears on the notice paper. This is the critical decade for climate action, and the next 3 years will fundamentally affect our children's future. As I've said many times in this place, in order to rise up and meet this challenge, we need a comprehensive suite of policies. The Parliament is off to a good start, setting a floor of ambition at net zero by 2050 and through the work of ARENA. But one of the clearest and most actionable plans we could make is to electrify everything. Improved energy efficiency and demand management can greatly reduce the challenge we have ahead of ourselves as we transition to clean energy by slashing the required investment in renewables, transmission and the distribution network upgrades. The emissions reduction we require over the next 10 years can be achieved while controlling rising costs of living, largely driven by inflationary and volatile energy prices through electrification. It's going to make our job easier and cheaper. Discussion around energy efficiency has long been seen as the poor cousin to renewables as part of Australia's decarbonisation plans and debate. Until recent changes to the National Construction Code, Australia's housing stock has lagged behind that of many countries in terms of its thermal performance and the performance of heating, cooling and other energy systems. Quite simply, inefficient buildings are unhealthy for occupants and lead to a range of poor respiratory and cognitive outcomes, particularly when inefficient fossil fuels are used indoors for heating and cooking. Ultimately, improving energy performance is essential to decarbonisation, but it also importantly delivers cost of living relief, something that so many Australians are currently seeking. Electrifying everything and ensuring it is powered by sustainable and renewable energy puts downward pressure on the energy bills of Australian households and businesses. Effective measures can also make our businesses more competitive, support Australian jobs and reduce the strain on the energy system, all while reducing our greenhouse gas emissions. It sounds good, doesn't it? So what must we do in this place to deliver these outcomes for Australians? Based on the work of experts such as Saul Griffiths and others, a minimum economy-wide target of 40% improvements in energy performance by 2050 should be put in place. To achieve this, all new buildings, vehicles and industrial developments should be obliged to deliver net zero emissions from the get-go, from energy through efficient design, electrification, on-site renewables and contracting renewably generated grid power. In addition to this, millions of existing buildings must be retrofitted through a combination of incentives and regulations in 3 main areas, including electrification, thermal envelopes and lowering the cost of living. Firstly, electrification is crucial to delivering full operational decarbonisation of building, whilst also delivering health improvements by removing dangerous nitrous oxide and other pollutants associated with gas cookers and unflued gas heaters. These pollutants have been found to account for 12% of childhood asthma amongst many other conditions. In this context, I urge the government to develop, through their current review of the National Energy Performance Strategy, a specific target for electrification. Secondly, improving the thermal envelope of a building through insulation, double glazing, draft proofing and other initiatives can substantially reduce the energy needed to cool or heat it. And thirdly, efficiency reduces energy consumption and consequently associated bills, but achieving it may involve out-of-pocket costs. For this reason, delivery of the energy efficiency or electrification targets must include assistance for low-income households, with a particular focus on rentals and strata buildings. My electorate of North Sydney is primarily a high-density living area, with 58% of private dwellings being flats or apartments and 42% occupied by renters. In this context, I would support targeted incentives along the lines of the United States 2022 Inflation Reduction Act and/or concessional loan structures where repayments are made via utility bill savings for low-income families and small businesses. At the same time, I believe we must also incentivise landlords to embrace energy efficiency measures, improving the quality of their assets, whilst also providing greater service and ultimately cost relief for their tenants. I can clearly envisage a North Sydney of the future, with a reliable, affordable, renewable grid powering our fully electric and highly efficient homes, businesses and industry. With economy-wide targets, education and incentives, this future will be a reality. Thank you.